Friday Flow! Today is episode number 27, and I have as a guest gallery owner of Shockbox in Hermosa Beach, artist and psychologist Mike Collins. We are going to talk about the future of the gallerist and artist relationships. Thank you so much. Just a quick reminder that this live will be recorded. So if you have to go, please make sure that you can watch it later. And I have Mike already joined us. Please feel free to send us any questions. And thank you to all of you who already sent us. And hi Amanda, hello. Let me see if my colleagues is here. I'm so excited. Thank you so much to all of you. I'm going to have Mike in a little bit. Mike, can you send a request? There we go. Perfect. Where is Mike? Hello.
I wanted to watch you for a minute, just struggle.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's the worst when you're like waiting for the person to get on, right?
I know I had a few past lives. It was about like 10 minutes until I get like the person on. That was like a little struggle. Well, thank you, Mike.
That happened with Kat. When you and Kat were on, she was like hosting her own Instagram live.
I know, yeah, it was so funny. Well, that's what happened when you go live. We never know. Sometimes the sound goes off. It's like, okay. Mike, thank you so much for your time, for being here, Friday Flow. It's an honor to have you here, straight from Hermosa Beach. I'm sure you are in here. And I want to talk a little bit. Let's start from the beginning. You're a psychologist. How you went from your practice as a psychologist to become an artist and then to become a gallerist, a gallery owner of Shockbox. Tell us a little brief of the story so we can get like to the page where we're gonna go.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm a psychologist, and the way that I'm still a psychologist. In fact, I'm in my office right now. But it was, when did you move to Hermosa? How long have you lived in Hermosa?
I am in Hermosa Beach for 15 years. And I think I've known you for about like 6 years, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was, I can't remember the exact year, but I want to say it was probably 2005, because it was around the time that I got licensed as a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
There were these sunsets that started happening. There were a lot of fires going on. Like there was a fire in Malibu, there was a fire in Anaheim. I think PV had a fire, and as tragic as that is, living here, it makes for the best sunsets ever. So, yeah,
exactly.
So I was actually working at my office, and there was this sunset that just stopped time. Like the client that I was sitting with was like, "Oh my God, look at this thing!" And in fact, I didn't set this up either, but let's just go. Like, I'll take you on a little field trip. It wasn't this sunset.
Oh wow!
But my office is like, I've got a pretty good view up here.
That's beautiful.
And everything just turned orange, and I had this feeling of like, man, you should paint that. And I thought to myself, as the client was speaking, like, why the hell did you think about painting something you don't paint, And the next day it was a similar sunset. And then the next day it was a Friday, a similar sunset. And I kept having that same feeling. So I just stopped at Aaron Brothers when they were down the street and bought 3 canvases and some paint, and proceeded to paint 3 of the worst paintings you've ever seen in your life. Like they were just terrible.
You can judge our first painting.
They were bad, Drika. I was trying to make them look, I'm going to fix my life. I was trying to make them look like that sunset, and they were terrible. But I'm friends with a guy named Rob Havasey, who's a really, really accomplished California surf artist. And I messaged him or called him. This was before camera phones. And he's like, yeah, don't paint what you saw, paint what you felt. And with that, I made this painting that, I mean, it was still kind of wonky, but it just, like, the feeling You know, just like whatever it was that I was trying to get outside of myself onto a canvas happened. And I just kind of started messing around, painting. And the transition from that to kind of putting together a lot of work, or what might have led to the gallery, is a Hermosa Beach story, in that, you know, when we were all starting to have the political stuff and kind of fight that oil company from coming in to drill for oil, the
Yeah, I
community
remember
really
that.
got together, and one of the things we were doing for fundraisers or to just raise awareness was art. And so we started to put together these silent auctions as a component of our fundraisers, and various members of the community were donating art, right? Like, hey man, I don't want that to happen, I don't want that to happen. And that's where I started to really kind of get a sense of this, something that the community wanted to do beyond just fighting an oil company. And it really, for me, shortly after the oil fight, I'd kind of run out of things to do. And
Mm.
there was this art show that was happening up in Palos Verdes that was a fundraiser for the Surfrider Foundation. And like, I saw the announcement in the paper, and I had no idea how to like be in somebody else's art show, or none of that stuff. I was just like a guy. And I called the lady whose name was in the paper, of like, hey, I want to be in your art show. And she was like, well, it's tonight, like you can't be in the art show, but if
But
you
you
want to
can
come,
apply.
you can come see it. And but she was like, if you want to bring something, we'll put it in the silent auction. So I go up to this art show, and I brought this painting of mine, gave it to her for the silent auction, and then I saw this other art show, and that that that's what led to me wanting to start to do art shows. And it's something that goes back to, I saw a buddy of mine, I don't know if he's still on, Bobby Mungary. What's up, Bobby? I'll talk about you right now. Back, you go way back to when I was in middle school or high school, and some friends and I were getting into skateboarding, and the skateboarding scene's pretty welcoming, but also there were these like older guys that you would show up to skate, and they'd be like, yeah, well, you know, you guys can have one run, but we're going to have five, or, you know, you could only skate on Tuesdays. And so we built our own ramp. Like we built our own scene, right? And that's what happened for me with that art show that I was at, was like, wait, I want to do that. Like, I want to make art shows. And so rather than just apply to other people's art shows, which I started doing, I made that show up at Harmony Yoga. I think
Yeah,
you were in the
I
second
think
one that
that's
we
when
did.
we met. That's
Yeah,
how we got to meet. Yeah, it was a huge show. I remember.
right.
It
And
was
that
so
that
many people. Yeah. And for as far as I remember, because I live here for 15 years, and that's when that was exactly time when the art scene in Hermosa Beach was almost like start showing up. We didn't really have that. Besides like Shockbox and now Resin with the Artist Collective, I think that art show, that was like the very beginning when you guys really saw and felt the need of this community for an art scene.
right,
And I think it was like the perfect timing. And then it was like Shockbox, boom. It was like
right.
amazing.
So I think from that, like, the community had come together around that oil fight, and then they just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to keep doing stuff together. So during the oil fight was when I sort of learned who some of you were, or that a lot of people wanted to participate in something. That second art show was just, so it was just like an easy lever to pull, because
Mm-hmm.
so not only did all the artists want to participate, but the community just wanted to come do something. And that it was from that, you know, that led into Shockbox. There was just there people like you and other artists that wanted to participate in things, and that little building just presented itself in a way where I knew that it was something that was going to be affordable, to take on with Laura, that she and I could afford the rent. You know, if it wasn't going to be that successful, it could
Mm-hmm.
have been a studio. It could have just been our studio. It could have been an art gallery. But that same crowd that showed up for us at the Harmony show just started
Kept
showing
showing
up,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Kept showing up. Um, So that's, I mean, that's how I got from being a psychologist or just a psychologist to kind of having, you know, having a little bit of a presence in the art world myself, but having Shockbox. Uh,
And I think this is incredible. And then I have a question. It's like, how are you able to wear so many hats of being a psychologist? Like, I know that you see your clients like during the day, during
mhm.
the week, and then you have your artist practice, which is amazing. It is just growing, and you create like so many shows. Like every 2 weeks, you have like incredible art calls and solo shows. Plus, throwing the art show and hanging the art because I know you do yourself. How do you manage it all? Please tell me.
I don't, first of all, I don't have kids, right? So that's that really, there's a lot of energy that I can pour into something else, right? Where people
Yeah,
that a lot of the artists that we work with have kids, and
yeah.
that burns up a lot of time, you know, not in a bad way. So there's that, and I've just always been a busy person. Like you know, I get up to stuff, but more so than that, and I think it gets at, I know you titled this like, what's the future of a gallery look like? And so you really started making me think about Shockbox in a way, because I don't think about myself as a gallerist in the same
Mm,
way that I imagine maybe somebody like William Turner from William Turner Gallery thinks about himself, right?
mm-hmm.
There's this kind of uh, I don't want to say higher level, but there's different money changing hands at certain art galleries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those traditional galleries would have a gallerist, and then they would have artists, and they would have buyers, and the gallerist would he's the person in between, right? So you might not necessarily tell the artist who the people are that you're selling their art to, right? Like you keep
Mm-hmm.
that pretty close to the best. And I don't know if Bill does that, but he's been really helpful in giving me a lot of tips about how to go about working with Shockbox.
Work.
But
Mm-hmm.
with Shockbox, I don't. I'm not that guy. Like I don't keep you all away from whoever's buying your art. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
way that we all have grown Shockbox together is that as much as it is a gallery, you know, white walls, great lights, great art shows, there's an energy behind it with, you know, at
The
least
whole
a
the
dozen,
community, yeah.
the community. You know, you've got the
Yeah.
program artists, but then you've got, you know, 36 more artists that are program adjacent, and
Mm-hmm.
those people help run that gallery. So you
Mm-hmm.
have, like, I just saw, hey Preston, I just saw Preston Smith come on.
Preston.
um, Preston is a lot of the sweat and brains behind the cafe calls that we do. And there's a lot of other artists, Amy Mandala, Joy Ray, that help on the digital side with communicating with people. Uh, Scott Meskel really jumps in and does a lot of the promotion. I know you do. So that's part of how that's, it's twofold. That's how I balance out. Like people are like, dude, how are, like you're so busy all the time. But
Like
there
how
are
can I
people,
help, right?
yeah.
Offering that hand. And I really like that perspective that you have of incorporating the artists that the gallery represents and really giving them the opportunity. Like I see so many beautiful artists like creating the show during the
Mhm.
show and hang the show. And I think this is the kind of relationship that I love it, and that's what differentiates Shockbox, I believe, and all of the artists that we can see, they're growing every day and creating these new opportunities. And Shockbox itself creating and giving these opportunities for new artists who come along and who just want to be part of the family. That's it,
Well,
and
right, and
this
that's,
is beautiful.
that goes back to like, I'm sure you might have felt that way, you know, when you start to branch out from the South Bay art scene and you want to start showing in LA or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
There's this feeling that it's such an exclusive scene, right? That you're not going to be able to crack in. And
Yeah.
that, first of all, as much as that was what was in my head, that has not been my experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to run into a gallerist or a curator or somebody in the LA art scene that hasn't been totally cool about kind of laying their cards on the table and wanting you to participate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the vibe. Like if you, you know, the people you hang around with at Shockbox, you know, you guys are all really great artists, but what makes us who we are isn't the fact that some of us can paint good or draw good. It's the vibe, it's the energy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you've been hanging out with some of the, I mean, the ladies in our program have since COVID, like you guys are just on a different level. Like the way that you support one another, the way that you promote one another, the way that you know, just the fact that like
It's
you guys are
building
leaving
that
art.
relationship, and I think the way I see it is so naturally evolving with time and with every call that I see. And I think what really help, and that's it relates to the future. It is the Zoom opening that
Oh
the
yeah.
Shockbox start doing it. It just kind of connected in a deeper level.
Hmm.
Not just of the artist, but every new artists that come along and is accepted to the call. I see artists who keep wanting to get accepted, and after like a few calls they finally get accepted. They're so excited to be part, and just to seeing that the Zoom is just beautiful. And again, I think this is like the future. And I remember like back before COVID, we had so many galleries that saw themselves almost like forced to shut doors,
Yeah.
and like Shockbox, it just kind of turned around. And because you had that vision and you saw that opportunity instead of a lack of opportunity, and just kind of like creating this new way, like the Zoom meetings. And even like I did my virtual opening, and it was kind of hard. Like you don't know what to expect. I
Right.
barely could talk in front of the camera. You remember that?
Well, Drika, it there's like I think you're onto something with that. COVID COVID forced us onto Zoom, and I'm not being dramatic. Like I think just as far as Shockbox is concerned, COVID probably saved Shockbox
Yes.
because you know we had like when Laura and I started it, we had this goal that we were going to try to attract a bigger audience than just the South Bay, and that we didn't want to just have ocean inspired art. We wanted
Mm-hmm.
to have a diversity in not only the artwork that we were going to show, but the people that we were going to attract to the gallery. You know,
To be part of the LA scene map, not just the South
right? And
Bay.
and and
Hmm.
so to invite people from all over to feel comfortable in our community, and I think Shockbox nailed that kind of right out of the gate. But we also started to gain uh, a popularity that the street maybe wasn't quite ready for. And I certainly made some mistakes early on, you know, like I didn't have the right permits in place, or, you know, I sort of thought we were operating like the Wild West. So
Hmm.
suddenly you know, we start putting on that show with, you know, the Brent Broza show or the Bob Dobb show, where there's 750
That
people
was
on
a
the
lot of.
street. We got in trouble, you know, and that was tough. It wasn't fun to feel that way. You know,
Hmm.
I got pretty dark just around what it felt like to be in the middle of that. And it you know, Shockbox is a passion project, and so I was never afraid to hit my own pocket, you know,
Hmm.
to supplement the rent. And certainly Laura was the same way. But when all that stuff blew up, there were several months in a
Scary.
row where it was like, what are we doing here, you know?
Wow,
And
yeah.
it was shortly before COVID when Preston had come forward with the idea about doing those cafe calls. But at the same time, I'd been pinned up against the ropes long enough that, I mean, you know me, how many times have you been like, Mike, can I help? And I'm like, nah, Drika, I got it,
Yeah.
you know, but I just got so far up against the ropes that I didn't have it. And I started being like, yes, you can help. Yes, you can help. Please help me with this. And what happened for Shockbox kind of going right into COVID is we all kind of coalesced around this shit's not going away. We're going to save this.
And
And
the whole need of connection, I feel like it kind of like combined with the Zoom meetings
yeah,
and the the call from the cafe. I think this whole
well,
thing just kind of came together.
yeah, and then that's where, you know, you started off this conversation with like, I'm a psychologist too, right? And so when we had to take it to Zoom, you remember the first Zoom we did was Sarah Svetlana's solo show.
Yeah.
Like her show was up, and then we went into quarantine, and it was like we had this beautiful show that we had an opening for that was just sitting in there.
Yeah, it
And
was in July. It was like right at when COVID hit, right? I
March,
remember that. March.
March.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, well, Sarah, let's hop on Zoom and do like an artist talk and see how we can close this
Hmm.
out. So uh, we started doing that, and I was expecting 5 or 6 people on Zoom, but there's like, there's like 50 people on Zoom that had just gone into quarantine that were, like, what's this? But as Sarah started to talk about her work, I've got the image on the screen. She's talking about her work. You're looking at the Zoom, the chat, and people are going like, "Oh my God, I love this. Keep doing this. I'm learning more about the art." And my mind as a psychologist is like weaving this together of like, how do we wait? We're engaging people in a place that I didn't think we were going to engage them. And so you roll into that very first Zoom that we did, and the Shockbox family showed up as much as, we had these people from all over the country zooming in. There's like 100 people on this call, but you guys showed up in a way that we weren't just talking about art. It was like, oh, hey, what's going on? And there was this interaction and this cast of characters that I really feel like sometimes people are tuning into our
Was Zoom.
Shockbox stuff now, not just to see the art, but to like see what Scott Mescal's up to, or see if Drika pops in, or Allison McMahon Johnson will, like so many people pop in, that people were asking us when we got kind of closer to being able to have live openings, like, are you still going to
Yeah.
do these Zooms? And we're just doing a hybrid, like we'll do both.
Yeah, and I think like for my own experience of throwing a solo show in person only and doing in Zoom, the difference that I got is that when you have a present art show, there's just so many people that showed up, and you always talking to somebody, and you worry about everything that's going on and whoever is going to show up. And when you do via Zoom, you actually have a chance to talk about your work, which
Yeah.
it should be the number one priority in any art opening. And you barely have opportunity because you have friends and you have, your neighbors in your community, and you barely talk about your work. And that's pretty much the way that you connect with the buyer. It's talking about your work and why you do the way you do. So I think this Zoom meetings, it's perfect, and it's a great opportunity for even all artists to interact and to understand one another, and kind of force you to think deeper into your own practice, into your own work. It's
Right.
hard to explain that, like, why do you paint the way you paint? And a lot of artists doesn't even like have that. And
Right.
I think the Zoom meetings, and Scott, if he's here, he has like the perfect questions for you to
Yeah.
just kind of
He
like
loves it.
fire all those ideas in your brain. And I think this is just amazing. And that's kind of like the future that I see. And when I pick up this title of the future between the relationship with the galleries, because if you see a lot of like, especially like new artists, they kind of see that separation when
Yeah.
they see like a big gallery in a big show in LA, in New York. They kind of feel like separated. They feel like they don't belong.
Right.
And with Shockbox, it's quite the opposite. Like, you want to make sure that you including like every artist that you think will fit for that specific call.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good, and I think that's the future. It's
I,
now.
I have I want to say something about that, but I want to also talk about Zoom and specifically your solo show,
Hmm.
because you took a risk, and that's part of the people that I love about Shockbox. Those of you that stick around, is that you were like, hey, I want to do a solo show, and I mean, let's face it, it's more fun to just have the huge opening with 300 people in the
Yeah.
street and all that. But you took that risk, and specifically for you, you were able to have a lot of people from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
that have, like you said, so many people had never seen one of your art shows or been able to
Yeah.
participate at one of your openings. So that's the other thing, is that you have this little gallery in Hermosa Beach that's suddenly able to make noise in Brazil, New York City. You know, we've had artists from South Korea, Japan, France, you name it, you know, in those shows. But yours was like, we put that show out in 2 languages.
Yeah. It was a bilingual art opening. It was so
Yeah,
fun. We
yeah.
we have Anna translating. Anna, I think she was here, shoot out to Anna and you. I was so nervous. I was like, I don't know what to expect. I have no idea, but it turned out just great. And I love that Shockbox found a way to open the doors to worldwide. It's pretty much
Yeah,
worldwide because besides all of this Zoom, you also are able to put your art into Artsy, which is
right.
one of like the most important art platforms to sell art around the world. So can you explain that, how this relationship with Artsy? Because I remember towards the beginning, Shockbox wasn't on Artsy.
Right.
And for you guys who doesn't know, Artsy, it's an art platform that you're able, but you only able to put your art there to become available. It is through a gallery. So
Right.
how that Chalkbox got started with this relationship? Because I think it's awesome.
Okay. I think it is part of the like what a future of a gallery looks like too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Collaborations.
collaborations with you know, Artsy puts us in front of eyes that we would just never be in front of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this collaboration with, I really feel like the future of a lot of galleries, especially small, like do-it-yourself galleries like Shockbox, is much more collaborative with the artist, as
Yeah.
opposed to just being like, hey Drika, I'm going to sell 49 of your paintings this year, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Artsy, the first time Laura and I approached them, I mean, Shockbox had been a gallery for like a minute, and we send an email to Artsy and we're like, hey, we want to be on Artsy. And they said, no, like get back to us in a year when you've established yourself as a gallery. So not only,
Mm-hmm.
you know, their platform is curated in a couple of different ways. They're curating the galleries that get on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
And then because the gallery is the only place, you know, the only access point for an artist to put their work on Artsy, then I'm curating the work that I put up there, as opposed to other really great avenues like Saatchi or Art Finder. So what is it,
Mm-hmm.
Singulart? You guys, any artist can put their work up there, and so
It
you
doesn't
start to
have
have
that curation. Yeah.
the. I mean, I know you probably carefully curate what you put up, but
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
could put up whatever they want,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so after about a year, we reached back out to Artsy, and they said, yeah, great, we'd love to have you. And it was like, it was going to be like $800 a month for us to be a part of that. And at the time, it just really wasn't in the budget. You know, we were already peeling off a bunch of money just to make rent, and so it was like, let's see, let's see what the
Later
future holds.
on.
And about a year later, RC emailed us, and that email
Oh.
was like, hey, we know that you were interested. We like what you're doing. We're creating a new platform that makes it, because we had told them we just couldn't afford it, and they're like, if we could make it, I think it was like $450. Would you be willing to do it then? And I was like, yeah, that's something that
Awesome.
we can afford. And they were doing this just real small test thing in like Los Angeles and New York with these little small, do it yourself galleries. And so we hopped on, and they were promoting us. And it was just about the same time that we started doing those cafe calls, because as a artist run gallery, I'm always really careful. Like I don't even want to put off kind of the I don't even want to make any sort of vibration towards I'm trying to exploit artists, because like, us, we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain element in from artists that are like, galleries are trying to exploit artists. They just want to make money off of us, and the reality of a gallery is there's rent, and there's white paint, and there's lights,
Mm-hmm.
and there's promotion. And if you're going to start trying to be on Artsy, or start trying to have those calls on call for entry, that are going to these are things that are going to elevate the bar, it costs money, like there's a
Yeah.
break even point that I'd like to get to every month. So we wanted to give artists this value. Like if you get into one of our shows, we're going to promote the heck out of you. We're going to put you on Artsy. And then the other thing that I think is a component of a future gallery, where I see some galleries that are just stuck, and I don't think that they're going to go further, is we get out of the way. So like when you had a solo show, yeah, Shockbox put it on. It was at Shockbox, and I'm going to be there, but I'm getting out of your way. Like I'm gonna promote that in the way that you want to promote it. I'm gonna let it's Drika's month in that gallery, right? I'm not going to stand there and be like, look what I did. And
I
it's the
love
same.
that.
It's the same with a group show. When somebody comes in a group show, my goal is to have every artist that participated in it feel like
They
they belong, that they got their money's worth, and that it was about them. That it wasn't about like, look what Shockbox did. It's like, look at what all these artists came together and did. And I want the artists that don't get into the shows to see the show and maybe understand why they didn't, right? Sometimes, we do those calls. We're looking at 600 or 800 images, and we've got to get that down to 30
80,
or 40.
30,
Yeah,
40
80.
pieces.
Yeah, if they're
Max.
really small. And that's hard, because if we had a gallery that was 3 times the size, we could still maintain our quality and let that much more art in. So if I'm saying no to somebody, I want them to look at the show and be like, they just went a slightly different direction, or dang, like I need to go back to the lab, like I'm not putting forward the right work for that show.
Yeah, which I think you got into the point, which is very important. And so many artists are getting they just apply to all of the calls, they can see it, and they don't really take the time to research the gallery, and then they don't get accepted, and they wonder why. So if you are trying to get into a gallery, you need to understand who is the curator and what are the tastes, what are the type of the gallery, to make sure that your art is a good fit for it. And even if you don't get it, it is not because your art suck. It's probably because the gallery or the curator didn't have that specific vision that your art represents, right? So don't get discouraged, people.
Right.
And as a galleries and as an owner, what do you have to say to people who are really willing to have and to work with a gallery?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, hit me up. If you're a new artist, if you're an old artist, if you have any questions about kind of what's under the hood, message me, email me at mike@shockboxproject.com, or find me on here, because I'm so happy to talk about that stuff. And I like what you said, like if you're going to apply to a certain art show, it is worth your while to check out the gallery and kind of see what work they show. If all you paint is watercolored starfish, and Shockbox has a call, for whatever we have a call up for, right? It would behoove you to see kind of what our vibe is, if we have an abstract show, there's even a certain style of abstract that shows up in our gallery, right? And if we have a photography show, there's a certain style of photography that's going to show up. And what I like is I'll sit back in some of these group shows, like the one that we have up now, Intergalactic Open, and that's any style, any medium, anything goes art show. So there's some photography, there's some abstract, there's some figurative work, but if you stand back and look at it, you can see the thread.
Yeah,
that
you can. It's almost like a vision that you have, and you kind of like incorporated each and every piece to kind of go along with each other. And I think this is so important. It's pretty much what I consider it's the artist's job to understand what is that vision and what is that created about, so you will understand what they're expected from you and from that specific call, because it might vary. And what I really love about the Shockbox, besides all of this that we're talking about, that you guys have such an incredible, you come up with it so all of us are come up with so many great titles and subjects that
Right.
almost like the artists who are in there and try to participate it in each and every one is almost like force. That's the way I feel. I was almost like force myself to get out of my comfortable zone to be able to participate.
Well, I think
So
for you, Drika, like if you think about the program artists, and you have like you were one of the more established artists before Shockbox came around, and you
mhm.
have a very, very, very tight, recognizable color palette and style of work that you do that's beautiful. Um, and it's a little bit outside of what the typical like Shockbox
Shockbox,
program artist does,
yeah.
but you bring something to the table that's so important to us, which is first of all your sense of humor, your enthusiasm, like all of that, but you're totally willing to experiment.
Yeah.
And I think for us, that's what I love is, obviously we want to put up really great work, but when I see an artist that I know understanding that we're the place where if you want to do something different, like let's do that. Um, that's
Embrace
a
it.
part. Yeah, embrace it. And I think you asked me a question. I don't know if I answered those. Like, what should somebody know that wants to approach a gallery, or did I answer your question?
Yeah, what would you have to say to a new artist who want to have to build that, to start building a relationship with a gallery, if you have any
Um,
tips on that?
yeah, I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure that it applies to a lot of other galleries. But
Mm-hmm.
um, one like sometimes somebody will hit me up, like I'll just get a cold call, or Astrid, if you she's the one that gets the email first from, like, if you just email Shockbox, but she'll forward things to me that are an artist that's like, hey man, I want to have a solo show, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
who you are, and then you even attach a couple images where it's like, you have clearly not been to this
No.
gallery, right? So I mean, first of all, please approach me via email and cold call me, like that's fine. But if we're gonna kind of start dancing together, I need to see you at the gallery. Like, show up at a show, show up on a Zoom, like say hi, let us get to know you. Um, and specifically for Shockbox, like, as you know, somebody who's put in some sweat equity, uh, there's a line of people that are planning on having solo shows there, and there's this combination of, like, they've probably been in some group shows, they're probably up to something, with making art that a solo show makes sense, and they've put in their time. They've
Mm-hmm.
supported a few other people. There's not this, like, uh, sense of
Me.
entitlement. Yeah, me, like this sense of entitlement. Like, it just doesn't fly. Uh, so I like to see people around. That being said, I feel like the crew that hangs out there is so approachable. Like, you hear it at shows where somebody who's wanted to get into a couple shows finally does,
Yeah.
and they show up and they're like, geez man, this is so mellow, like everybody's cool, right?
Yeah.
And it's that accessibility that I want
Yeah.
people to experience. and
Exactly.
and
And make
go
you
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go.
And make it feel, remember when I was saying that a lot of artists feel sort of like a separation when they see like a big gallery, and they feel like they don't belong, and they're scared or they're afraid to show up. And when you come like to Shockbox and you see like everybody's just so cool and approachable, you
Right.
feel that you belong like right away. And it's, I'm not saying because we are all cool, because we are, but you can
We're not.
feel the minute, no, right? The minute that you walk into
Right.
Shockbox, you can just feel the energy, and everybody's there. And we like artists, like I love going to Shockbox to, of course, see the art, but I know that I'm gonna see other artists there, and we're gonna be talking about, you know,
Yeah,
whatever I have, and sharing ideas and our processes and whatever we are doing at that time. And we are just cheering for each other like so much.
right,
And this is like that collaboration that I believe that's the future of a gallery and artist relationship. You have to look into a collaboration, not just like you have a gallery and they're gonna represent you and all you're gonna do is paint. No, you have
right.
to show up. You have to participate. You have to be part. It's almost like one big thing. You know, it's collaboration, collaborating, and like the way that you allow artists who are part of the program to do everything else and like do the calls, you know, do the artsy things, creating. So everybody's kind of like this cycle of everybody helping each other. And I think this is amazing, and that's what I love. Everybody at Shockbox and what Shockbox is doing is that
Let me
collaboration. Mm-hmm.
let me ask you this, because you um, are one of the greater examples that I know of somebody who's always promoting not only their own work but other people's work, and you're a great collaborator, and I never pick up any sort of like you're just not vibing people, you know. Do you feel like that there's something that's unique to what we're doing at Shockbox, or do you feel that same vibe anywhere you go? Does that make sense?
No, totally. It's not at all. I feel like Shockbox, it opens its door for you to to like put your hand out there and say, hey, I can help, or how do you
Right.
need my help for it? I think the minute that you walk into Shockbox, you can feel that. You can
Yeah.
feel that you can collaborate it, and you can put something in the table of anything that you were good at. And it's not definitely not everywhere. I see a lot of egos around, and which is something that I don't see at Shockbox ever. So yeah, that is definitely something different that Shockbox is doing from my own experience, of course. Yeah.
Well,
I
thanks.
love it. Theodosia, no, not at all. Yes.
Yeah, she's liking it. I really, I can get kind of, I can get emotional thinking about that street, you know, and that scene. If you put it in the context of, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, we stopped what would have been a really major oil project from, that would have been a very different neighborhood. Like it would be
Yeah.
gone, you know.
Yeah.
But Shockbox stands on a street and on the shoulders of so much more
Historical.
creativity. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
the modern surfboard industry is from Hermosa Beach. You know, Greg Knoll and Bing Copeland and Hap Jacobs and all those guys started shaping right there. And those shapers are still down there. So like when you come down that street, the creative vibe is just bustling, you know, with music studios or surfboard shapers, or, you know, Chip doing
Is
woodworking
that
across the street.
It's beautiful. If you guys are not from the Hermosa Beach, just for you guys to understand, Shockbox is that at Cypress Street, there's a small street. It's almost like that industrial little area, and
It is.
and
It's our
there's
only
so many
industrial area.
shops
Yeah.
and creator that you're talking about that just bring this whole
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
I love it. What is your ideal future for Cypress?
For Cyprus,
Yes.
um, first of all, you know, I've got a foot in like in these two different camps on Cyprus, right? Number one,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to change in a way that threatens the surfboard shapers and the
Mm-hmm.
people that were there before us. And that's a sticky wicket,
Yeah.
because gentrification is real, and capitalism is real, and things change. And so the way I look at it, as many of us that can be down there with some sweat equity and maybe even owning buildings or having long-term leases, we can help steer this in a responsible way.
Mm-hmm.
What I think sort of in the short term would be really ideal is, I mean, it'd be cool if it happened every month, but if it happened like 4 times a month, where there was something equivalent to like a first Friday or every other Thursday kind of thing, where the community got directed down to Cypress, and it was like, hey, everybody's going to be open, from 6 to 9 on this particular night. You've seen it happen
I
when
love it.
resident,
It's
yeah,
exactly what I have in mind, and it's like one of my dreams to do it like a first Thursday or something
right,
that what every shop can open its door, and even if they want to have other artists too, or just to show up and to give the
yeah,
opportunity to the neighborhood, right? To the community of Hermosa Beach to show it up too and have that artistic event. I think it's just gonna up
right,
level
yeah.
the whole town.
If I could just do it, I'd love to do it in a way that stopped short of a street fair. Like, we closed the street over the summer,
Yeah,
which I think is cool, but
yeah.
I think it's a little disruptive for like a longer vision of,
Mm-hmm.
if it was just like, hey, everybody knows that 6 to 9 on the first Thursday of every
Yeah.
month, all these jokers are going to be open. And if you then the few galleries down there would know that those are the nights that we plan our openings, because then we don't have to, it doesn't disrupt the neighborhood twice. And you see it when people come down there, if they're from Hermosa. I mean, it shocks me that there's still people from Hermosa that come down there and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was here. It's
Yeah.
like, really, dude, our town is 1 square mile. Like, how have you
Yeah.
not crawled over it? Or the people that come from out of town. I love it when an artist or friends of an artist will come to a show, park their car down on Cypress, and just be like, what is this place and where can I go to dinner? And you can point,
Just
it's,
walk
what is it,
around.
3 blocks, to
Yeah.
downtown, and they can go eat.
Yeah.
Um, so that's, I hope that that's what happens to the street. From a Shockbox standpoint, if everything stays just exactly the same, and I have this little spot that's self-sustaining, and I can keep, being home base for a bunch of artists to be super creative, I'm stoked. If I start thinking like, well, let's start talking about something bigger, fancier, flashier,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, Even if that was the case, like, let's say that we had just cause to have a gallery at Bergamot Station,
Mm-hmm.
right? Astrid works there 5 days a week. You have a full staff, you're doing all that stuff. I would only do it if it paid for and allowed Shockbox on
Shockbox to
Cypress
stay.
to
Mm-hmm.
continue to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I would love to do with that is have that be in our back pocket. And the 4 or 6 times a year that we were doing a show on Cypress, the buzz around it would just be like, oh my God, they're doing something on Cypress. You can't miss
You
this.
can't
You have
miss
no
it.
idea what it's going to be. Like, just really kind of press the experimental nature of what I want that gallery to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it is already like making noises, of course, in a good way.
Yeah.
And and it's been attracting so many artists from all over the world, right? That we have this
Yeah.
walls, which it just opens more door to even like the community to come and see art from all over the world. Like who would have thought, right? Shockbox is doing just that, and I think it's just amazing. Uh, Now I have another question related to your psychologist background. I read a quote the other day. It's like for you to be able to make good art, you don't need to go to art school. All you need to do is to understand yourself, to understand other people's perspective. So I'd love for you as a psychologist, artist, and gallery owner to talk about this a little bit, to demystify art school and artists who don't feel they're not good enough because they never done art school.
Sure. So I'm gonna try to bring that home to the not good enough part.
Uh-huh.
I want to start with, uh, I don't have anything bad to say about art school. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I think of like Chloe Allred, right? She's one of our program artists, and she teaches at a few art schools. Um, and I think she probably has a particular understanding about some things that I know you didn't go to art school. We're just like
Mm-hmm.
maybe we'll stumble upon it. I've heard people say, you know, sometimes art schools can be kind of stifling, where they
Mm-hmm.
force you into a bucket. And I would say, if I think about Chloe, she is nowhere near being forced into any bucket. Like, she's somebody who I really feel like knows herself and expresses herself in a really beautiful way. And I think that to me is the secret to being, you know, like, like, I think a lot of great artists and a lot of great creative people never show their work, and that's great, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of us that's like, you know, even those 3 bad paintings I made back in the beginning, I hung them on the wall, you know. Like, if I make it, it's like, dude, look what I did, you know. Like, I want it on the refrigerator, mom. And so I think that there's other artists that are either just driven enough to want to share what they're trying to say with other people, that they'll push through their anxiety and nervousness. And then there's some of them that are like, what I did is just so cool, you have to see it. But I feel like that's the stuff. And I see that in, like, a lot of my clients, you know, will be like, oh, I want to make art, but I'm too scared. And it's like, make it, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I can tell you, for my own artwork, when I used to do the abstract stuff, like that black and white thing behind me is something I made a long time ago, you know. I was happy to show it. And if it was in a show, I might be a little nervous about whether or not you liked it, but I wasn't dealing with any demons.
Mm-hmm.
And when I shifted and started making the work that I make now, you know, with the characters and the pink dress girl, when I had that solo show a few years ago, man, I was so nervous and anxious, and, like, you know, I'm standing there with, like, my hands inside my shirt.
Cannot
Because,
even imagine that.
well, but because what I put out was so, like, it had to get out of me, but it was so raw
Vulnerable.
and
Yeah.
vulnerable, that, you know, I feel like that's where the magic is like,
When you open yourself for that vulnerability, because
yeah,
one thing is you to expect something from other people to feel your work, right? But another thing, it's you just to have that confidence, whatever that outcome it might be. But I just need to put that out. I just need to take it out of me and express it at some point. And I think that's when you gain confidence, when you don't really worry, but you just felt that energy that you just needed to have that expressed out of you. Yeah.
And I think the confidence too, it comes from, it doesn't, like, you don't get confident and then do that.
Yeah.
You do that, and just despite the fact that you're a nervous wreck, and then you realize that you didn't die as a result of doing it. And so then you're like, all right, like maybe I'm okay now. And that's what, you know, that's like, that same thing applies to leaving a job, asking for a job, trying to get into a relationship, trying to get out of a relationship, surfing, you know, like people that surf in scary conditions aren't just like, you know, I'm not scared. They're scared, but they're doing it anyways, you know, and then they learn how. And, you know, I didn't go to art school. I'm certain all those things are happening at art school as well. You know, I just feel like more so people that think that they don't know something because they didn't go to art school just show up anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there aren't any rules, at least not in our neck of the woods.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
I feel like that's what the art world kind of give us. You have the opportunity to create our own opportunities. Like, you don't have to follow certain rules. Of course, there are things that you can learn from one another, from other people's perspective as an experience. But the whole key here is for you to see which path that you wanted to take. And because of so many opportunities that we can see, it's so many things that people are doing in a different way, it just can cause you so many
like confusion. It can just even paralyze you. It's like, oh, where do I go? It's just too much, and I don't know where to start. So I think the good way for you to start is to see what you get attracted first, and see how you can incorporate it into your lifestyle. Because a lot of this, it's like, are you gonna handle that bad things? It's like owning a gallery. Like, you know what to expect, and everything that's like, if even if everything goes down or something happens, you know how to handle it, and you know that you can put that into your life and make, like, you know, and turn it around. So it's almost like you have to choose your battles pretty much,
Sure.
and see how you can incorporate that experience into your life. And see, like, for example, doing lives, I did not know that, like, I was not even good in
Right.
camera, and now it turned out that I love. It's just you have to kind of feel what are the things that kind of light you up, and just do that
Right.
and do more of that, and trying to find
Sure.
it, right?
Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing when
It's
when
usually
I
like
opened
the best.
Shockbox. I just like wanted that spot, and everything's been on the fly, and I think that's the way to go, I think.
Yeah,
Um, I see a lot
embrace
of
that
people
unknown,
like
right?
yeah, a lot of people they just paralyze themselves by making a plan. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I got to work on the plan. I got to work on the plan. It's like, swing the bat, dude. You might hit something.
And they get frustrated when something, little things will go wrong, because you're
Yeah,
expecting to go a certain way, and all you have to do is open yourself up for the possibilities and see where
yeah,
it's going to lead you, right?
yeah. It'd be fun to it'd be fun to create somehow figure out a way to document. Um, not just I mean, we could document the arc of Shockbox, but even just to document the arc of one show. Like,
Yeah.
we have a show coming up that you're part of planning, the all female show No Man's Land, and that's a great example of um, my wife, who's on the Hermosa Beach City Council, had let me know that she and uh, the Hermosa Beach Chamber of Commerce, who's run by a female president, uh, we're thinking about the word Hermosa and the fact that it says her,
Yeah.
HER, Mosa, and Women's History Month is coming up. So they're planning on doing something. And so I just kicked out to those of you that are female, that are part of the Shockbox program. Hey, take the gallery, come up with a plan, and you saw the process of them coming up with a title.
Yeah.
Um,
We
it's a
did
little
a
easier when
Zoom. Yeah.
yeah, it's a little easier if they just pop in my head and I say that's the title. But you guys came to a conclusion, and we put the call out. And once the call's out, that's when the chaos ensues. Like, first point of chaos. People look at. I guess I'm telling you this story because people will look at a gallery and think, "Oh man, they know what they're doing. They have it all figured out." And it's just controlled chaos. Like, Emerald Paget made that flyer.
Which is
I thought the
beautiful.
flyer was so beautiful
Yeah.
that I posted it on Instagram,
Even
but
even before the call was up.
before the call was live. So then you get a message from Preston that's like, dude, the call's not live yet. And I'm like, it'll be cool. Nobody's paying attention to us anyways. But then the emails start coming in, and it's like an artist from Florida. It's like, what the hell's the matter with you? You posted a call and it's not live yet. Like, what kind of crap is this? And it's like, I promise the call will be live on Monday. So now that problem's solved. And the next one will be, half of this art's going to come from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So then I enter the world of like shipping logistics, and some people have shipped art before, others haven't. So then there's going to be like a round of Q&A around, like, how do I do this? And then there's the round of Q&A around, because like you said, I can be kind of busy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, look, ship your artwork here, and please tell them to not require a signature. But
A lot
I'm
of
gonna
times.
get 3 or 4 things that require my signature, and then it's like
Yeah.
this, like, write down until you get the show hung, and the lights come on and people come in and they're like, God, this is so easy to do, and you're like, yeah, but don't
No.
breathe on that one painting because it's about to fall off of the wall, and that one's still wet, and this one just got here 4 minutes ago, But I would go crazy if it was all like a super super smooth process.
which I think it's just part of the process. You will always figure out a way, right? You always can
Yeah,
ask for help. And like now, like even Chalkbox has such a huge, like it's like I see it as like a family of
for sure.
people who are lookalike and who are willing to just help. And
Mhm.
we'll always find a way. We'll always figure out. Always when the light will turn on, everything will look the way it should be, right?
Well, and the cool part is because it's an art gallery, even if it doesn't look the way that we necessarily wanted it to,
Doesn't
as soon as
really.
people come in, they're like, "Oh, you taped a banana on the wall. I like what you did there." You know, like you could
Yeah.
just like that's where the waffle came from. You know, we have that waffle on the wall. Like it was during sword fight. Like I was having breakfast and just like brought a waffle to the gallery and threw it on the ground just to screw with those other guys. And then
Yeah,
people are like taking pictures of it,
I
putting
remember
it on
that.
Instagram. You're like, all right, you know,
That's
like,
the beauty of art. It's not right or wrong. You just have to reinvent it, invent it, and then do something new. And it is what it is.
well, right. And so what was the you started this with a quote about art and what was it? Do you remember?
It's like to make good art, you don't need to go to art school. You need to understand yourself and others better.
Yeah. Like I feel like and I know Scott says this on all the Zooms, like I want art, like I want to feel something when
Hmm.
I look at art. And I, in a group show, I might be attracted to these 12 pieces and you might be attracted to those 12 pieces. So we might not be feeling it on the
Hmm.
same pieces, but I really like art that is somehow disruptive, that's going to like smack me. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it has to make me angry. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but I want to feel it. And I really, really appreciate uh, work where I can see the artist like struggling in their
Mm.
process, where it's not just necessarily like just a perfectly beautiful piece, but if I can look at like where you moved a line a little bit or where part of
Hmm.
an underpainting is, or you I'm just really drawn to that stuff,
I
and
love that.
yeah,
I love that. That it's almost like you go to like an art show in a gallery, and every artist is gonna look like so close, and they are
hmm
looking so close just to see what is underneath, right? Like trying to understand the process,
yeah,
or
yeah,
like how did they do that frame? You're always
hmm
looking sideways and looking underneath, looking different point of views, just to trying to understand. And this almost like a going and doing the reverse, right? Trying to understand, like exactly like the way you said, the struggles.
well, and I think to that end, um, early on, like let's say before we were doing a lot of the cafe calls, I would have a new artist that would get in a show and they would be like, "Hey, this is the first time I've been in an art show, and I know you told me to wire my painting, but I don't even know how to do that." It's like, "I'll show you, like here, like I'll wire it for you." And your work was something that I used to just take off the wall. Like if I had a new artist that came in and they would be like, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing." I'd be like, "Well," and I'm talking more about like how to not not the painting, but all
The
the other stuff,
structure,
right?
yeah, the
The
structure, how
structure,
to
like
finalize and
your pieces
present.
have information on the back. You've wired them in a thoughtful way. Your cards hanging on it, like you represent yourself, like you make a living as an artist, and
Hmm.
you represent yourself like somebody who's making a living as an artist. That's helpful to the gallerist because if I have somebody come in that's looking at your piece, I've got a story to tell about you, and I
Hmm.
also know that I've got this certain kind of product.
Hmm.
Whereas uh, not everybody knows how to finish a piece.
Yeah.
And when we started doing the cafe calls, what I noticed is just across the board, like if you take the local artists and suddenly we're exposing ourselves to
A
international
global,
artists,
yeah.
and the gallery's bar raised,
Mm.
but our bar raised. And
Mm.
suddenly artists that didn't necessarily
Raise,
understand how to finish out a
yeah.
piece, maybe how to frame or not frame a piece, how to represent themselves, it changed. And I'll see somebody who used to come in with something just all raggedy, that's now
Mm.
coming in with it looking a different way.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
So we've
that.
all elevated that.
That's important. I feel like if you want to become an artist who make a living of artists, you need to look at yourself as a professional artist.
Yeah.
If not, if you're just gonna bring your piece with whatever, with no, no way for the artist who is like, think of the person who is going to hang that piece. They need to have that information right there, not just
Yeah.
on the computer. They need to be ready to hang, look at presentable, for to up level your art at the best way possible. And if you don't know, you can just ask. Like you said, you're more approachable than ever, and I love that on Chalkbox.
Yeah, and that's a way, if you think about approaching a gallery, if you've spent your,
You're
25 bucks or whatever to
mm-hmm,
apply, and you get in a show, that might be the first time that I know, like, I'm interacting with you,
mm-hmm.
and so if we're down there opening up, like, I'm going to see you as I, like, opening up your packaging. Like, I get it, everybody's different, but if it suddenly I've got
You
40 pictures to hang, and some of them are nicely wired and ready to go, and then other ones are, I'm like, how am I even going to get this on the wall?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This,
The first
it
impression works for a
presents a
painting
challenge.
too.
Yeah, and
Right?
I know for you, like, first impressions, if I think about a lot of the artists I know, like, I'm not making a living as an artist. I'm making a living as a psychologist. So I have certain freedoms
Mm-hmm,
about how I'm going to play with my image, right, in the art world.
mm-hmm.
And if I think about you and Preston Smith, and I know other artists that are making a living as an artist, but I'll put Amber Goldhammer in this category. You and Preston and Amber are three people that I know that are making not only a living, but a good living as an artist. And you guys work your tail ends off, right? Like, you paint more than just about anybody I know. You keep up with promoting yourself, which I think the artist of today and tomorrow has to do, right? Like, you have to use some form of, you don't have
Promotion,
to,
yeah.
but
Yeah, you have,
social media.
yeah.
You are equally as comfortable putting your artwork in a fancy gallery show. You also have pieces that you could go sell at the Fine Arts Festival in Hermosa Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're ready to hit the world on 9 different levels. And I know Preston is very similar, and I know Amber, like, you guys hustle. And there's artists that show up that are like, I got into an art show, now I'm ready to buy a car. Like, how are we doing this? And it's like, that is, it's a hustle. And
It's a process. Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing this as a professional artist for the past like 6 years. And because of the internet and marketing, like, I did not stop studying the market and the business side of it. So
right.
if you want to become a professional artist, you have to invest in yourself too, and putting yourself
Mm-hmm.
out there and lose that fear and have faith. Because without faith, without believing that you can achieve that success that you want, there is no way that you're going to gain that confidence that is
Right.
necessary to go along with you.
Right. I think that's kind of getting close to wrapping up, probably.
Yes, yes.
But
Right.
that brings it home, is that it's, what's the future of the gallery, of something like the size of Shockbox? I think it's a relationship space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's just a space where I'm going to sell your art. We are going to create something that people want to be a part of. And I know, like, Patty Astor would tell me about Fun Gallery. Like, there's people that want to buy art, but they want to buy a story. They want to buy the relationship, right, with the gallery. With, like, if somebody says, hey, that's a cool painting, tell me all about that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the story is how they acquired it. Oh my God, it was at Drika's solo show, and, like, they want to tell you how they got it.
Yeah.
And you do a really good job of that. And anybody that's listening to this, right, when I'm the gallerist, right, you do a good job of having a relationship with me, but you give me that, like, I know who you are, right, and I know that I can represent your relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and your authenticity. Like, you match what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
Congruence.
yeah, and this is maybe an unpopular thing to say, right? But if you come down to the gallery during drop off, right, when people are dropping off in person, some artists will walk up with their painting and you're like, I can sell your painting. Like, please come to the opening and stand by your painting. This is a full package. Theodosia Marchant is a great example of that. If you see her and you see her paintings and you meet her and hear her talking about her paintings,
Yeah.
it all makes sense. There are other people that show up at drop off and you're just like, oh my God, like, don't stand anywhere near your painting if you want to sell it, because you're just like not nice, you know? Or like, you know, I got feedback about my work from a few people that were like, you match your abstract work and some of that like dark stuff I was doing on cloth, but they're like, I don't get this whole little girl in a pink dress. Like, you probably shouldn't do that. I disagreed, right? Like, I feel more congruent standing around that work, but I do understand that if I were to try to bring that to a different gallerist, their feedback to me might be like, I can't sell that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that
Or
make
maybe
sense?
they don't know your story enough. Because I always feel like the way I see it, it's like you and your art is an extension almost of yourself. And a lot of times I go to an art show and the way that I dress, and people say, oh, you're matching your paintings. And it's not because I want you or like, oh, I'm going to match my painting. It's just who I am.
Your paintings match you.
Yeah, exactly. It's just all the way around.
I just tell people, I'm like, dude, she's from Brazil. And they're like,
I got it.
yeah, your love of color is unmatched.
Oh, Mike, such a great conversation. I feel like we could be talking here forever. Thank you so
We have.
much. Tell me very quick where people can find you and Shockbox before we wrap up.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Collins Art on Instagram, and then Shockbox is Shockbox Project, right, on Instagram.
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to email me about anything about art that you think I could possibly be of service for, you can email me at mike@shockboxproject.com. We have a
Love
show
it.
up right now called the Intergalactic Open 3, and that will run until the middle of February. And then your show that you're a part of, No Man's Land,
No Man's
we're still
Land.
accepting calls for.
Submission
Yeah,
is called, yes. And I'm so excited because it's going to be my first show that I'm going to be able to participate in curating the show with the girls for Chalkbox. So I'm really excited about that. So the call is open. So make sure to check that out. Mike, thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anything
thank
else
you.
that you'd like to say?
No, I think we covered that and then some. So I hope
Okay.
you have a good weekend.
All right. You too. Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you who participated. Don't forget to check out Mike Collins. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. Happy Friday.
Thanks, Rika.
Thank
Bye.
you.